I get an idea, usually from heaven only knows where. I mean, I get an idea. I want to write about a person in a particular situation. Like this novel that I'm writing now, it began with a vision of these two people in a hospital room having an intense discussion, and one of the characters is dying and the other one has to deal with that. And I began to see these characters. I began to see the city around them, the hospital. They are immortals. They're not human beings, yet one is dying. One's actually being physically destroyed. And all of these ideas came to my head, like, where did they come from? How long have they been on the planet? Why are they here? What's their nature? How do they feel about us? How do they feel about Christianity? How do they feel about all the things that I believe in? Well, anyway, it just grows from there. And usually during that early process, the ideas will grow in my mind nonstop, but they're vague. And at some point, I may read a lot of books on the subject. Like, I may look at all my books on the Atlantis myth, Plato's original dialogue in which he describes ancient Atlantis and the legend of Atlantis. Then I may read other books on the Atlantis material, the books of psychics, the books of New Age people, whatever. I'm reading a lot of this for fun. I don't necessarily believe these people are channeling ancient beings from Atlantis, or that there were 3 and 4 and 5 different races, as the great Madame Blavatsky says there were in our prehistory. But I get a lot of ideas from this. And I start thinking, well, what is the most fun way to do this? What do people want from a novel about Atlantis? What do they want to see? Then I may watch a couple of movies that deal with the subject to see whether they've done everything that I want to do, or whether the field's wide open. All this is part of the process for me. Finally, there's the note-taking that I described, just chatting with myself about the characters. Mundane things like listing names. Names can block me for weeks. If I don't have the name for a character, I can't make that character. And so I went down with this recent novel and I got all the names before I started. I consulted name books. I wrote names in the back of the Bible, in the back of different things I was reading. Wonderful biblical names, say, that people don't really, they're not too familiar with. They're not going to associate with any one story. I collected all these names, and all of these different things, something even as mundane as collecting names, that can be very inspiring. I see a name and I think, oh boy, I know that character. I see his hair, I see his eyes. That's perfect, I know that. I mean, it's like a spark that can cause a fire. But all of that to me is part of the process, and I've done that more or less on every book I've written. I remember once getting an idea for a book. I was on a plane and I was watching one of the Star Wars movies. I think it might have been the second one. And I remember thinking about how I wanted to do the dark side and the battle over one's soul. And I couldn't stop what was evolving in my brain. It just took off. And I never forgot that moment. That's where that book began. And you know what? I couldn't tell you which book that is now, but I remember that moment. I remember that moment and going home and being excited. And so it starts that way. It starts with an intuition, maybe an image, a vague idea, a feeling, an ambience. And then I begin to explore that. And of course, there's a lot of trusting to instinct in this. I mean, I really believe in the instinct of writers. We don't always know why we love something, but we have to go with that love. We have to trust it, because it's coming out of all that we are, all that we've read, all that we've loved, all that we've ever been thrilled by or captivated by, and we need to trust that instinct. And when you're writing, you trust that. You trust that if you love this, if this is exciting to you, it's going to be that way for somebody else. That might not be the first person you show the manuscript to, but it might be the 3rd person and the 5th person and the 100th person, and from there on out, it might be a lot of people.